So anytime that you have like a human being
Mm.
that's doing rational thinking or something subjective, an AI
Mm-hmm.
might help you like, compile the data, display it in a way that you can easily review it faster. But
Mm-hmm.
there's still a human on the other end of that that's choosing what's happening in the real world. So that's my like overview of why I don't think that we're going to see it completely replace a lot of jobs that are at least that are, I'm going to call them thinking jobs or engineering jobs. But what it is good at is it's good at manipulating data, taking inputs and creating outputs. So a job where
Mm-hmm.
every time I describe it as like looking at the screen on your left and looking at the monitor on your right and then moving the data from one application to the other. Anything like that can be automated to a certain extent with something like AI, but that's not your entire job. That's actually usually the worst parts of your job are kind of doing those tedious data entry type
Right.
of tasks. So I view it a lot closer to like a cell phone is an incredible tool that can do
Mm.
so many things for you in your day-to-day life, but you wouldn't view a cell phone as replacing who you are as a person. There's still all these decisions that are going into it. And I view AI in a similar way where it's a tool with inputs and outputs, but there's still a human on the other side of things driving it and making sure that these real world decisions end up correct.
Right, right. I love the inputs and outputs things, and it's a task deal. It's a tool. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
how we in the marketing group have used GPT Chat, Opus Clips, Midjourney, but it's just a tool. You can't tell it to do something, it do something, and you're done. Like it takes work to make it authentic and to make it right and to make it legit. Um, but I've heard the term too. AI will not take your job, but someone using AI in the future might take your job. So it's important. Like you got to be. It's just like if people refuse to do email today, they probably wouldn't be able to work at most companies, right? It's the same kind of thing, and it's really not that scary or that when you get in there and start using it, it's like, oh, it's just like probably what a word processor felt like, back in the,
Yeah, I
gonna
think that's
date
true.
myself
And
in the
I'll even go
80s.
all the way back to like, the first guy with the hammer could build a house faster than the person with the rock trying to
Right,
hammer the
right,
nails in. So like every tool is just a tool. And AI, I don't view it as something that radically different, other than the
right.
fact that it hasn't existed yet. And it is going to be able to be useful for certain functions in our industry that we do. Right now we're hammering the nail with the rock, and then now we'll be able to use
I
the
don't know.
hammer.
I think the hammer and the nail kind of came along at the same time. I could be
Okay,
wrong,
all
but
right, that makes sense.
maybe so. But I wondered if the construction guys back then look at these kids with these hammers,
Yeah,
look at
that's
it. It's
hilarious.
the end of the world. And it was funny. I like to look at history in terms of like new technology and new fads or the way young people are doing. And I was reading this article from, I don't know when it was from. I'm going to say like the 1700s. I don't know, but it was like the end of humanity because the kids were hanging out in coffee shops playing chess too much. Like that was it. And I was like, oh my gosh, it would be like heaven today, right?
Yeah, it's like
So
your dad's music is never cool until you get older, and
that's
then
right.
it
Yeah,
becomes cool.
absolutely. Well, my music is cool. Like I don't
I
care what
believe
my kids say, right?
that.
So okay, so in terms of the construction process, how has AI affected it? So if I know it's just kind of getting started, but what are
hmm
some of we're talking about HVAC specifically in a minute, but like in the construction world, how has it been implemented? Have you seen anything happen in there?
Yeah, great question. A bunch of different companies. I'm going to give you a few that I think are doing some pretty cool things. Even some potential competitors of mine that I'll shout out as well. But construction in general, it's such a wide term, and there's so many
Mm-hmm.
pieces from the very first owner of a building who decides he wants to build something, all the way to that building getting handed over and operated, and even years into its operation life. There's probably thousands of different processes and people that are involved with getting that building created and built. So
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to give you like a single definition for construction as a whole, but I'm going to pick a couple that I think are kind of relevant. So one cool company is called Brainbox, and what they do, and I'm going to give a crude definition, but what they do is essentially they plug into your control system, and they're running machine learning algorithms on the controls data to try to do predictive control of your fans or pumps, etc. So one example
Mm.
is they might be looking at weather data and saying, we see that it's going to get hotter in the next couple hours in your building, and we know how to modulate your equipment to maintain set point temperature and actually
Mm-hmm.
save energy throughout that process.
Wow.
So that's a machine learning processing algorithm, which is really AI that's kind of doing those control sequences. And actually they're also taking one layer further and doing a more chat GPT like system. They just launched it, but you can essentially interact with your controls data intuitively, like natively with an assistant. So you could say, turn up the heat of fan coil in this room, and it's going to have the data for those parameters to be able to run the function to make that decision. So
Mm-hmm.
seeing it just as kind of optimizing, like from an energy efficiency perspective, is a pretty cool thing and a useful thing that even in your day-to-day life designing buildings or building a building, like you might not see those actual control loops being run and being like operated, but
Mm-hmm.
there's AI systems that now can get applied to those control loops and help optimize buildings from that perspective.
Yeah. So how do you see, like, construction professionals adapting to these changes? Is there like a skilled gap? Is it kind of like, does it fall in line what we talked about earlier?